you're an ADHD and you've been struggling and you're constantly comparing yourself to other people on how they do things and you feel like you're trying to force yourself to be like someone else, keep watching because this video's for you. Because in this video, I'm going to show you how I went from someone who was extremely self-sabotaging, imposter syndrome was running the show. I was feeling like I wasn't good enough for the journey. I was feeling very insecure. I was feeling like someone who didn't have the skill set to be able to help others. I was always comparing myself to others, right? To now having a much better relationship with ADHD, understanding the traits so well that I could reframe them to my advantage and build a life that I actually want now, right? So I could do content creation in the way that I like, that is so useful for the way that my brain is, and it's optimized for how my brain works. And of course, my coaching business, the same thing. And of course, my community that I run, my free community on Skool, the same thing. How I deal with all these things are done through my relationship with ADHD and how I use my ADHD to move the needle forward on anything that I'm doing project-wise. So if that's something that you'd like to hear more about, keep watching and let's get into it. So the first thing is that you need to stop fighting your ADHD and start looking at how it actually works. How does your brain actually work? How is your brain wired? Most ADHDers, what they do is they try to be normal, right? There is a way of looking at normal that has helped me to make a difference to my life, right? Triangle in a square world. You're a triangle and the square world is the default that the system has given us as a way for us to deal with life, right? They've told us that you go to school, you learn a specific way, and if you learn that way and you do it effectively, your class is normal. If you're not, and then you're not, right? And if you go from that to then going into a 9-to-5, the corporate world or whatever career that you want to choose, and you do that until retirement, that's classed as normal, right? If you do something outside of that, you've been trained to see that that is not normal, right? And what normal is something that you want to aspire to be because you don't want to feel out of place, right? But we're triangles and we're creative and we like to think outside the box, right? Instead of trying to fit into that box. So this is really important for us to deal with. Like, we need to try to understand how our brain actually works so that we can adapt, basically do things that fits for the way that our brain works versus comparing ourselves to what other people's idea of focus is. The second thing is just going from having no system at all to having a system that's built around you and how your brain works, right? So most of the time you see this productivity advice out there that's telling you how to be productive, right? And if you're not able to be consistent with that, you start seeing it that you're not good enough, or that you can't stick with these to-do lists. You can't wake up at 5 a.m. You can't do, planning. So you got like a planner. How many of you have been very clear that there's a plan that you want to go for, and you've got your planner, you purchased it, you got super excited, you've done it for maybe a week, and then you've fallen off. And then maybe you bought another one again, and then you bought another one again, you've got maybe 10 of them, and they're all unfinished. Does that sound familiar? Here's the thing. There's a certain way that you should approach your journey that fits for your brain. And for neurotypical, they have their way, and there's a way that we have to approach things. Like, where is your energy optimized the most throughout your day? Maybe yours is not at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Maybe yours is at 9. Maybe yours is at 10. I noticed that between maybe 8 and 10 is where I have the most energy. I'm walking up and down the flat, like pacing up and down, like I'm really energetic at that point, right? I might be a bit slow throughout the morning when I just wake up, like, kind of like pacing, taking my time. Just looking at that, like, it's really important, instead of just saying, oh, well, if you wake up at 5 o'clock, you're successful. And for them, they don't have an ADHD brain likely that needs to have a reward system in place or needs to have some form of gamification to be able to actually make that be more exciting for them, because we've woken up with a very low supply of dopamine, which means that we're very kind of demotivated at that point in the beginning of the morning, right? So we need the least amount of decisions to be made in that morning to make sure that we actually show up and do the things that we said we're going to do that morning, right? So the third thing is that you want to optimize or engineer your environment to suit how your brain works. For example, you have your phone at the desk and you're trying to do a hyper focus session, and you find it that you're just picking up your phone all the time and checking social media. Just take the phone out of the room. Like, I know it sounds obvious, but for a lot of us, it is just making it more friction to not do the things that are distracting you, right? If there's nothing on your desk whatsoever to distract you, there's not 100 tabs open on your browser and your phone is in another room, you set the timer and you start the task. As you start it, you're going to lose track of time when you're in it, right? But all these distractions that you're getting throughout that time that you're in that hyper focus session and you're doing the task switching is the big problem for you that's making it really hard, right? You need to decide what you're going to do within that window of time that you have. I use what's called the 55-5 method. I've mentioned it on this channel before, where I block 1 hour time window for me to do something, and I make sure that there's no distractions around me whatsoever. And when I get into that task, I just look at what is the first 5 minutes of that, what does that look like, and I just jump into it. And once I'm in it, I'm already just like, in my flow state after 5-10 minutes, right? Once I'm in that flow state moment, of course, when I get to the 55-minute mark, when that alarm goes off, I take myself away from the environment that I was in to reflect. So I have my FBI journal, which I'll just share what friction may have come up on that session that I did for that 55 minutes. Maybe I didn't take my phone out of the room and I was jumping in and out of the phone, right? That'd be a friction that came up for it. What was the really good thing that happened? Like, what was the blessing that happened in that session? It might have been that I took my phone away. I had these certain sounds that were on that were just really, really empowering, helped me to tap in. And number 4 is that ADHD becomes a superpower when you flip the negative ways that people are putting on weaknesses for ADHD, for example. They'll say that we lack focus and all this stuff. But there is obviously a way you can flip it into a positive. We can focus. We have a thing called we have a trait called hyperfocus, where we lose track of time. We get time blind. But yeah, time blindness might be a bad thing that might impact us. It might make us run late, but then it might also be a great thing for us to get the best work done, because we were in that flow state. We was able to just knock out a crazy amount of work in that time, and we just lost track of time, right? That is a good part of the ADHD trait, hyperfocus. But the bad part is that it may end up leaving us in a moment where we have to rush now to get to this appointment, or we forget that the washing's inside the washing machine. When you're seeing ADHD as a thing that you need to be fixing, right? A problem that needs to be fixed, it holds you back. It stops you from thinking outside the box. It stops you from making progress on things, because you're putting all of your time and energy and your focus, the most valuable resource that we have, onto something that's not going to move the needle forward. Is actually going to amplify that experience even more. You want to hyper focus on the benefits. You want to hyper focus on improvements. You want to hyper focus on like the problem solving, right, aspect. And how can I enjoy solving those problems? How can I enjoy building, right? We're creators. We love that, right? And if we could just do more focus on that, we can change our life drastically, just like I was able to do, where I left the corporate world. I'm now a coach. I'm now someone who has a system in place that I've built for myself and for my clients to help us to be able to follow through on our projects and move the needle forward on anything that we have as purpose-driven activities in our life. I'm a content creator, so I'm content creating on YouTube, on IG. We have 130k followers now on IG, and this is going to just keep growing because of the way that I'm able to understand the cadence that I want to do on these platforms, and how easy it is to create the content. It's all come through how I see and view my ADHD as a benefit to the journey versus it being a burden, right? Yeah, of course, there's moments where sometimes I space out, sometimes the day feels wasted, but I don't have to hyper focus on that. I could just look at that as data and say, how can I optimize my environment that will support me taking more action? What is that, right? If you're an ADHD that's looking for a way to build a system that works for your brain, that actually works, that can help take you to the next level personally, and of course for your business as well, by improving your relationship that you have with ADHD, I'll put a link in the description where we can just jump on a call and have a chat and just see if we're fit to work together. It might be that I just refer you to a free resource, or I might be able to help you personally with this goal that you have. Anyway, take care. Peace.